And the other one started as well. So welcome everyone. This is the first episode of our Tuesday tips and talks, and that pause there was me trying to get the slides up. There you are. So we are on the first episode. This is starting your Toastmasters year right. And to get us started right, I'd like to have a few reminders. This session is being recorded and it will be shared. So if you don't want your video to be shared, then keep it off. We will start with a panel discussion for about 25 to 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A for 15 to 20 minutes, and then the panelists will have a final round for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much time we have left. If you have questions or comments, type them into the chat. We request that you please keep your audio muted when you're not speaking, which means throughout the first 25 to 30 minutes, please keep your audio muted because we will have a Q&A afterwards. And if you have to leave your computer for some reason, turn off your video so we're not looking at empty chairs. I would now like, what I will do is I will introduce all of our panelists first, and then we will start with a panel discussion. So our first panelist is Carole McCulloch. Carole has 17 years of Toastmasters experience. She has earned DTM twice and is working on a Pathways DTM. She has completed 3 paths: effective coaching, visionary communication, and strategic relationships, and is working on team collaboration. A member of 3 on-site clubs and 2 online clubs, she served as Pathways Guide for District 70 and District 73, as well as District U. She is District 73 Pathways Coordinator and enjoys Pathways mentoring. Our second panelist is Kris Pool. Kris Pool is Program Quality Director in District 35. That's Wisconsin and UP, Michigan. A Toastmaster since April 2005, in addition to club and district leadership, Kris has edited the district newsletter for 5+ years. She was a Revitalize Education Program ambassador and later transitioned to Pathways Guide. In addition to Program Quality Director this year, Kris is serving as president of one club and treasurer of another. She has earned 3 DTMs in the traditional education program and is working on 3 paths: team collaboration, visionary communication, and presentation mastery. Our third panelist is Lori Haynes. Lori Haynes has been a Toastmaster for 5 years. She is in District 62, Michigan, and District 11, that's Indiana and Northern Kentucky. Her first path is visionary communication, and she's completing level 2. Her second path is team collaboration. Lori has served as District 62 Area Director twice, was a Pathways Ambassador, and serves as District 62 Lead Pathways Guide. She plans to complete her traditional DTM before June 30, 2020, while helping clubs make the transition to Pathways. Our fourth panelist is Tricia Grow. Tricia Grow joined Toastmasters in May 2017 and hit the ground running in District 38, that's Pennsylvania. She will submit her traditional DTM in December and plans to complete her Pathways DTM by 2021. She has completed level 4 in innovative planning and dynamic leadership and is working on level 5 in both paths. She has given workshops and speeches on her Pathways experiences and tips. Our fifth panelist is Trish Blackwelder. Trish Blackwelder is proficient for presentation mastery and visionary communication. A member since 1995, a 5-time DTM, and a past district director, Trish served as Pathways Ambassador and Pathways Guide for District 3, Arizona. She is District 3 Pathways Chair for Transition Support. Her committee maintains a Facebook page and group, conducts Pathways training sessions, responds to Pathways inquiries, and publishes Pathways Assist reference guides. So there we have it. Wow, I was gone for a while reading, and look, we have a large number of people on the screen now. Welcome, everyone. So I'd like to start by asking all of the panelists, what would be one single advice that you would offer to clubs at the start of the Toastmasters year to get started on the right foot? And anyone can, we're not going in sequence here, so whoever unmutes first. Oh, Carole, well, Kris is unmuted. Carole, so let's have Kris first and then Carole.
Okay, my advice is to encourage your members to take about 10 to 15 minutes every week to go through the different tutorials and videos that are available in Pathways, whether it's the Navigator or just under the regular tutorials. But if it's on a week where you're giving a speech, do not do that because you're going to already be overwhelmed.
That sounds great. Go over the tutorials. Do you have any? Because I hear people say there's hundreds. I know there's not hundreds, but there are a lot of tutorials. Would you have any sequence that you would suggest for the tutorials?
I would start with the Navigator and then just kind of click around because you don't know where it's going to take you, because every little tutorial is going to help you in some way. And sometimes you just need to follow the maze. Just click and learn.
I would be guessing for the average club member, it would be how would we do a tutorial when we don't have online access at our club venue?
I would take the time outside of a club meeting. Do it at home. If you don't have the computer access at home, go to a public library. Do you have access at work? Can you do some work online at work during your lunch hour or before or after work hours? Talk with your supervisor, see if that's allowed. Several of the locations where I am for our club meetings, we do not have any internet access. So you have to be proactive.
Right. If there's a will, there's a way. They can also be downloaded to your computer, and then you can play them from your computer. That's a great idea. And I'm going to suggest that to my clubs. And Carole's next, because you had your hand up next.
Thanks, Michelle. I agree with what Kris is saying, that we need to know, well, the members need to know where to go to get that help. So my first piece of advice is know your Pathways champion in your club. And if you don't have one, then reach out to your Pathways champion in your area. Stretch out beyond your club. And if that doesn't work, then you need to contact your Pathways coordinator or chair at your district, because they will know who in the district is a Pathways champion. At District 73, we list all of our Pathways champions on our District 73 website. And so people will be able to go there and find out, that person is really close to me. I'll go and ask her or he about what I'm going to do in Pathways. So it's all about the Pathways champions as far as I'm concerned.
That's a great idea. And in case all of the things that you mentioned are not available, there's the Pathways discussion forum. I'm guessing that most of you found this panel discussion through the Pathways discussion forum. If not, then Google it afterwards. Carole, I'm sure, will also post the link on the chat shortly after this. So, two great suggestions so far. Who's next? It could be Lori, it could be either of our Trishas. There, Tricia Grow has unmuted first.
I am in accordance with the last two ladies, is that, make sure that your members are ready to start. Get them prepared to start. Say, hey, we only have 12 months left to do the traditional path. Might as well start on our Pathways journey. How can I help you start? And just reach out to your members and ask them how you can help them to start. Maybe send them the link to one of these tutorials. Since we are able to download them, we can email them to our members. And maybe they can't even figure out how to find the tutorials. Email them the tutorial so they have no excuse.
Right. That's another way. Send them the link or send them the actual tutorial, because they would probably fit into a Dropbox or a Google Drive. There's a will, there's a way. What about the other Trish? Or Lori? No, Lori's unmuted. So Trish, sorry. Lori first and then Trish.
Thanks, Michelle. My tip is to take advantage of the fact that it's a new year. We like to start new things when something is new. It's called clean slate, right? We make New Year's resolutions in January. Granted, a couple weeks later, they've fallen. Pathways is different, right? We can start Pathways and keep going with it. And your club members, it's a new year, try Pathways. Or another way you can use clean slate, there's a new member. Let's have some other people start Pathways so this new member doesn't feel like they're by themselves. But it's a new year, really encourage them. It is the final transition year, but it can be a way that encourages them to start a path if they haven't started a path, because now is a new beginning for them, for the year, and for their first path. That's my tip.
I love the analogy with New Year's resolutions, except that our resolutions stick, hopefully, a lot better than the usual New Year's resolutions. What about Trish?
One of the things that I always think of at the beginning of a new term is that clean slate. But it's all about, let's go back and make sure that we're in tune with what a member's actual goals are, what they're interested in doing, what kind of pace do they want to do their speaking projects on. Are they looking to do speaking and leadership, work over the course of the year, so that everybody gets that, fresh perspective, and the vice president of education or the officers that conduct those interviews can be sure that they're in touch with all the members so they can help encourage them to stay on pace for their goals over the course of the year. And of course, I'm encouraging everyone to do Pathways in both of my clubs. However, we do have a couple of traditional folks that are trying to finish a couple goals up before 2020, but they don't stand in the way of any of our Pathways folks. They're still promoters of Pathways, and they have at least done level 1 so that they are familiar enough with Pathways to be able to help. So, my kitty cat has joined.
That was so cute.
Sorry about that. It's the cat's room too. But anyway, let's make sure that we all know what it is we're trying to accomplish this year, and then we can encourage everybody to stay on track.
That's a really good point, Trish, which actually brings me to another question, which I think is very important, not only for the people who are already embarked or engaged in Pathways, but also for our members who had started, they are on the traditional program. What can we do to help those members? Because I'm sure we've often heard that we can't just suddenly leave our experienced members who have been working on the traditional program. So what would be your suggestion? How would we help those members to get ready? Because as most of you mentioned, this is the last year before the traditional program goes away. What can we do to help them? What should we do to help them? Any who would like to start? Yes, Trish.
I'll just pick back up again. When Pathways was first being deployed here, I did have conversations with all of the members in my clubs, asking them, really, what was realistic for them. There were a lot of folks that said, oh, I really wanted to get my DTM in the traditional program. But when you sit down and talk with them and look at realistically what they had to accomplish, they have to make a choice sometimes, and they don't always get everything that they want. So if they're unable to take on that steep climb to complete what they wanted to do in the traditional program, then I try to work with them and help them bridge over to pathways to make that as smooth of a transition as possible for them, and try to help them make sure that they're excited about the things that they're going to be doing then in their pathways program. Again, you have to acknowledge that they're leaving something behind in some cases, but they have so much more to look forward to, really good things to look forward to, and you help them stay focused that way.
Thank you. And that's so important. Nobody should get left behind. Try and get or bring along members who are struggling, because sometimes the longer they've stayed with the traditional program, it's sometimes harder for some people. I think Tricia is all set to give her suggestions. And remember, Trish, unlike many of us, is only 2 years with Toastmasters. She joined in 2017. So Trish, what would be your suggestion?
Yes, I think I have a unique perception, because I joined when the traditional path was available, but they had already started talking about pathways. And because I was an online Toastmaster as well, I got to preview it way before my district got it. I knew that Pathways was coming. I sat down, and this is what I would suggest you do with your members who are in their traditional path, is map it out. Where are they on their path? Are they in an advanced communication? Are they in a leadership role, trying to finish one of their leadership awards? Help them figure out where they stand, how much material they have to complete before June of next year, and help them figure out is it possible? Is it possible for you to fulfill the number of speeches or other roles required to finish this award that you want to receive? Is it even possible? And then that might make the choice easier. Like, okay, well, you have to be area director. Well, you didn't get area director this year. You're not going to be able to finish your DTM traditionally. And not to say you can't have a DTM, you can have a Pathways DTM. But that will help you figure out, help them figure out where they stand, what is necessary, and then they'll be able to plan it out and say, okay, I can do it, but I have to do 3 speeches a month, or whatever the necessary steps are. But at least they'll have a clear picture in their mind what they need to do in order to finish whichever award they're attempting.
Thank you, Trish. And just a point of clarification, even if there is no chance to serve in district leadership in the last year, there is that special double credit that the World Headquarters, and especially Lark Doley, our international president, has set up, which is if they coach a club successfully, they can earn the district leadership credit as well. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. That is something that people should be aware of. I hope everybody on this panel discussion, all of our audience knows that you can coach a club. If you are successful in leading the club to distinction, you earn double credit as coach and as district leader. So,
Michelle.
Yes,
Michelle.
Carole.
I'm aware that there are a few brand new Toastmasters in our audience today, and I wanted to address my answer to your question about how we help members get ready for Pathways. And I think in one word, it would be mentoring. And that is the biggest thing that I would specify for any club and any member. If you haven't got a mentor in your club, ask for one. If you are a mentor, then engage with your protege at the beginning of a meeting or even before. Contact them by phone. Find out from them, do you know what this Pathways is all about? Would you like to make a start? What are your goals? And get them ready to think about what questions they need to ask you, because right at the beginning, it's all a blank slate. They don't have that information that we might have. So I encourage clubs to actually have a Pathways mentorship program in place. So get those people who've done the Pathways mentoring program to step up and be the mentors for the new club members. Get them started immediately. And just to finish off on that thought, roll it into your club meetings. And we're going to invest a little bit of time in this in my meeting tonight. And my protege is in the room. And I just wanted to point out that we're going to try having a mentor meeting for 10 minutes before the meeting starts. So we're just calling it the mentoring networking. And then at the end of the meeting, we can catch up again. So it's all about that support and having someone on the ground or by phone to contact.
Thank you. That's a great point, Carole. I do want to emphasize that many people have not done the mentor program, and it doesn't have to be the formal program. So for our audience, don't worry if you have done the mentor program, kudos to you. But even if you haven't, you can mentor someone. As they always say, an expert is somebody who's one step ahead. So you can mentor people even if you haven't been a mentor on the program itself. Trish, I see your hand, but I think Kris would also like to say something. So let's hear from Kris first.
All right. Just hearing the different comments and ideas has sparked an idea for me. One of our biggest ambassadors for the Pathways program, he is 87 years old. He wishes Pathways came out 40 plus years ago when he joined Toastmasters. He loves the options to pick and choose what direction you are going to go in. And I think I'm going to have him do a specific video aimed towards our seasoned Toastmasters who are hesitant to move into Pathways. He's 87. He's a little bit slow sometimes. You have to repeat instructions, but he has fully embraced Pathways and he is moving forward and is passionate about this. Again, I think Carole had mentioned getting a Pathways champion, whether it's in your club area district. Find one or two people who you can utilize to try and share their passion for Pathways to get that spark going with them.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And of course, most of us know the Pathways pioneer queen herself, Julie Kertesh, who is turning 85 in a few days and who has completed 7 paths and who felt so bad that it's 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, so she couldn't be on the panel. But yes, age does not matter. It is not an excuse. Thank you, Kris. And I think Trish, the other Trish B, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, again, listening to all the panelists, there's so many good ideas. One thing that I emphasized with all of our members, though, was to at least get through a level 1. Come on, guys. It's 4 speeches and a speech evaluation. It's not that taxing. And that way you would get, they would all get their feet wet and be more comfortable with helping new members that are coming in that are going to need those mentors. So we kind of made a game out of getting the who could get their level 1s done. Of course, it really helped our Distinguished Club program at the end of the year too, but it was still mostly just to make sure that they all got their feet wet in Pathways so that they would never be uncomfortable offering to mentor a new member that was coming into the club. Just an idea.
Thank you. And I'm watching the clock. I would like to move on to our final question so that then we will have time to have our audience members ask questions. And for the audience, if you have a question, you can look down below. There's chat. You can type your question in so that in a few minutes when we're done with this final question, your questions can be addressed. So the third question, and this should be just a really quick answer, is if you could share an actual example of a club. It doesn't have to be your own club. It could be a club that you've helped. Just a success story, very short success story of a club that took one of these suggestions and ran with it, and what's been happening with them. Let's hear from who's unmuting first? I'm not getting any unmutes. Oh, there you are, Kris. Okay, Kris, take it away.
We had, I don't remember which club name it was, because it was somebody who was telling me that they had done this, that a lot of the members were resistant to change, and they actually had everyone, I don't remember if they had everyone bring their laptops or if they arranged to have a meeting in a computer lab. And actually we did do that. I helped at one of them. It was a college located club where we had everybody log in. They all took their assessments. So we walked them through to get through the first icebreaker. Now, again, not all clubs have that access. Not everyone has a laptop or a tablet. But if you're able to make some arrangements with a local college or a technical college, can we use a computer lab for an hour and make a special meeting and have everyone go online? Because sometimes it's hard to just explain what's going on without actually seeing it and trying it in person. And if you're hesitant to do it on your own, doing it in the group setting might be a way to help.
Great idea, and great success story. Who's up next? Let me see. Is it Lori? What about you, Lori? Because I know you've been doing great things in District 62.
One of the things that have been really helpful that we found is encouraging members who have joined around the same time to work together in pathways. So we might have a group orientation with them where we talk about the paths, and then either they can choose their paths there, or I'll give them information. And then it almost becomes almost a competitiveness as they see who can get through level 1 first. And one will say, but wait, I haven't had a chance to give a speech. You guys are going too far ahead. And it's become a really fun way that they've worked together through pathways. And then as we get guests or other members that join, they see that this group is having fun. And then that next group, now they're starting to get together and help each other and to see how they can support each other going through level 1. And then now the first group is fighting over who's going to be left last in level 2 before getting to level 3 where they can get those electives. And they're having a lot of fun with it. We're supporting them. Then they're also really helping each other. And that energy has really just been everywhere in our meeting, and guests have felt it. And all of a sudden, we are getting more members joining this club than we ever have. And I truly believe it's because of that energy of it's a new program, and we worked really hard to integrate it so that we're always talking about pathways. It helps them understand it. They're supporting each other. We're supporting them. It's just become a lot of fun to learn and grow and help each other. And it's really worked wonders in this club.
Right, because people want to have whatever it is you're having if you're having fun. And
Right.
competition, healthy competition, really helps people to move forward. What about Carole? You've unmuted yourself.
Sure. I would like to follow on from that because I think incentives are so important. And I know that Laurie's done a lot of excellent work with resources that I have borrowed and delivered to other people in my district. One of the things that District 73 has had great success with, and we're hoping for even more, is to run monthly online education programs so that people in any club can come in for that particular event and find out a little bit more. We run those in Zoom, just like we're doing today, and we therefore encourage more of the members to step up and to do a presentation in those Zooms as well, not just being the absorber of the information, but being the deliverer of the information so that people grow in their ability to teach others. So we're doing it online to start with because it's a lot easier, stretching across 3 states of Australia.
Thank you, Carole. Thank you. And the two Trishas, are you now? There you are. I always want to see the competition. Who unmutes first? So Trish Grow.
Yeah, I'm jumping off of what Kris suggested. I was the area director this past year, and I set up our area director officer training for all the officers to bring a laptop or an iPad or some other device. And we walked through pathways. I did a session, I led, and then at the end we had questions and answers, and I sat and then say, okay, well, this is where you would find. I let them drive, but I showed them where to go to whatever particular piece of information they were missing or couldn't find or had a question about. And I got so much positive feedback from the officers from that training that they were just really like having that direct access with someone who knew where they're going. So I agree with Kris that that's very helpful to have a session where you can be there physically in the same room with everyone on a tablet or a computer.
That's right. And just again, for those clubs that may not have somebody who knows, I've heard people saying, oh, but it's like the blind leading the blind. Then you can reach outside your club, to your area, to your division, to your district, or to the world through different means, such as the Pathways Discussion Forum. Trish, you've unmuted yourself, so I'm sure you want to share something.
Just 2 quick, short things. The first one is with existing members. How do you light that spark? And I just taught a club officer training session this last Saturday where I had some challenging individuals in my session that were sure that they were going to convince me there was no benefit to Pathways. And I wanted to read a comment I got back from one of them at the end of the session. Okay, you changed my mind. The word personalization captures the benefit of Pathways over the legacy program. So thank you.
Wow.
I know, I'm thrilled.
Testimonial. See, we need this real people sharing the real experiences, because then we can see that, yes, it is not super easy for some, but it is doable. Thank you so much for sharing that, Trish. At this point, I want to thank our audience for staying quiet. I mean, this is the first panel discussion I've had where nobody suddenly unmuted themselves and started talking right smack in the middle of somebody answering a question. So thank you so much. Big applause to all of our audience members. Now, because you're Toastmasters, it's time to unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment or a clarification. And if it's a question that you want to direct at, yes, you will be the first one, Ramon. If it's the question is directed to a particular panelist, then say so. If not, then we will direct it to anyone who wants to answer. So Ramon, take it away. First, you have to unmute yourself.
Just want to make a comment expanding on Carole's comment of using Zoom for training. One of the beauties that we are using in District 73 is that then that recording of that training session can be posted on the website for availability of everybody. In the future, then it's not pointing them to the link and they have the training. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good point. The recordings, not just for those who are present, but they live on and on and on. Thank you.
Yes. And I'll follow on from that one, Michelle, to say that what we're doing now is we're breaking those 1 hour sessions down into 15 to 20 minute segments. And I've just posted the link to where you can find some of those in our Google site. And one of those, we had a guest speaker and none other than Laurie Haynes. So you will find that in there as well.
Wow, that is wonderful. Imagine down under in Australia, you have a guest speaker from Michigan. Wow, the world is truly one global village. I am looking to see if somebody has unmuted. Since we have so many, I have to cross over to the next screen. So if you have raised your hand, but I have not called upon you, just unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Mary, I am wondering, do you have a question? Because you seem to be wanting to say something. Mary Pringle? Do you know how to unmute yourself, Mary?
Oh, yes,
There you are.
do it. Okay. I don't. Do you find that people that never knew any other system other than Pathways, they probably don't complain about it, or has anybody ever felt that they adjust to it more easily than the old timers like me and some other people?
I think Trish wants to answer that. Go ahead, Trish.
Well, Pathways is all they know. However, many clubs, for mine example, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I was working on my traditional speeches because I want to finish my Distinguished Toastmaster before June of 2020. So I was doing advanced manuals, I was doing all sorts of things, and they had no idea what I was doing because they're in Pathways. So I had to actually have like a sort of a sit-down breakout session and explain what the traditional path was. It was very interesting. Kind of had to do a switcheroo and explain the old system to the new people.
Flipping it, huh? So this is what you guys don't have. That's a different perspective. Thank you. Does anybody else? Yeah, okay. The other Trish. Yes, Trish B.
I just wanted to say that our first new member after Pathways deployed is like just a bubbly ball of, energy. And he's contagious to begin with, but he jumped right into Pathways. This was his learning, opportunity. He was so excited about being at the meetings and giving speeches and doing the projects that it was hard for the existing members not to catch the enthusiasm. I heard someone at the last panel talk about doing an icebreaker meeting, getting everybody to do their icebreakers. And I wish I would have thought of that then. We could have all done icebreakers with him on the same day and gotten everybody on board with it. But his enthusiasm alone has been contagious in the club in getting those established members to open their eyes and, hearts to Pathways more.
Yeah, that's so true. It's really contagious. Enthusiasm is contagious. Yes, Ramon. You have to unmute. Yeah.
In relation of training, and I have done plenty of training in my life, one of the biggest challenge I find when moving someone old-timer to technology is because they are scared of the technology. Usually playing a few jokes will diffuse this situation. And the other big impairment I have found is that many of them like the traditional training because of the interaction with other people, not so much the training medium, but the social component of person to person. When we encounter that type of situations, well, depending on the individual, that's what we need to look at. And it's a challenge that we have to contend with. The social component has been the biggest challenge I find of moving people into the technological environment.
Thank you, Ramon. This is one of the misconceptions, though. Yes, Pathways is online, but it actually requires more collaboration in the sense that has been explained by most of our panelists, working together with a partner, mentoring someone, helping someone, planning the club activities. There is actually more socializing in Pathways than there is in the traditional program.
And that's what we need to convey, letting them know that there is a lot of interaction with other peoples in real time.
And the best way, rather than just conveying it by letting them know, is to show it, as our panelists have illustrated. So do we have any other question? I'm looking at the time, and we have time for, maybe, depending on what the question is, we probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Anyone who's a question, and if I'm not seeing your hand up, just unmute yourself, please. So let me see if I'm missing anyone.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat either, Michelle, but I may have missed some of those. Don't forget, you can put your question
Into the chat as well, yes. Carol, did you disappear?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you
There
are.
were no questions.
No, I think you got muted. Either I hit you by accident when I was clicking the arrow, or you muted yourself.
No, it's fine. I'm still here, and no questions in the chat.
Okay, so if there are no questions in the chat, I have often been asked this question. In fact, I was conducting a session at TLI, our TLI in District 7, 2 Saturdays ago, and this question came up. Well, how are you going to deal with the member who you've done your best, but they just don't want to have anything to do with it, and they're highly influential members? Maybe, I hope not, but maybe they're even one of the key officers. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that when it's an influential member who is not wanting to get on Pathways, and in fact has publicly, very loudly and publicly announced that I'm just going to stay this year and then I'm leaving? What do you do? How do you deal with that? Trish, yes. Trish B.
Okay. Yep, just being honest. I was president of a club. I had a vice president of education that, when Pathways deployed, told me she was not going to get into Pathways at all. She was going to work on her legacy program and finish all those manuals that she'd purchased, because she didn't want to waste her money on manuals, and not finish them. And it was uncomfortable, but I looked at her and I said, then I'll take your resignation. Her reaction, she was not expecting that. And I said, well, you have 2 choices. You can resign because you're not supporting Toastmasters International Education Program with that stance, or you can let me coach you on level 1 so that you get a better understanding of Pathways, and you can stay in your VP Ed role. Then she chose the latter. She's still in, and she's president of the club now, and she comes along with me to do Pathways training. It worked out for me.
Great. That was a hard one, but yeah, sometimes
Not easy.
you have to take a certain stance. Lori, were you wanting to add something to that, or to have your own response to that? Or yeah, there you are.
Supporting Trish on that. But I think she has a point that sometimes we have to let them get to the point, get to their wall. We want to encourage them, support them. I've had a couple in one of my clubs. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then what I did is I talked about Pathways during meetings. I did what I normally did. I respected that they weren't there yet. I supported them in the traditional program. And then I've developed an interactive way to share about Pathways in the past. And I recently did it at that club. And one of those members came up to me, and now he's all excited to get going, because now he understands better what Pathways is. Doing a normal slide presentation was meh to him, but did it in an interactive way that he understood what some of the different paths were about and some of the projects were about. And so sometimes I think we have to let those people go, or let them stew in their own thoughts and where they are, and focus on what we can do while still being supportive and encouraging. I hope that no one leaves in my clubs due to it, but I can't control what they do. I can only be there to try to encourage and support, and to support the club as a whole. And at the end, they're going to have to make their own decision on that. But, any way we can try to reach them is good.
Right, right.
I
Carole.
agree, Laurie. I agree so much. That's so important to allow the member, as an adult individual member of a club, to make their own decisions. But we want them to make informed decisions. So one of the things that I did recently when I visited a club, and the VPE had indicated to me that 2 of the members were totally against pathways, and they were, causing a bit of chagrin. And so he wanted me to actually help them understand what was available. So I approached it in a different way, and I explained to everyone that once you get through those first 2 levels, the whole world opens up, and you have all of those wonderful electives and other projects to choose from. For that person, that made all the difference. So we sat down and we had a look at the electives. Did you know that you can do this or that? It's very much like what choices you had in the advanced manuals once before. And this is where they are. All you need to do is get through levels 1 and 2. And when you've done that, all of the electives stay with you. Once you've gone through level 2 and you can see all the electives, you can go back to them many, many times, as I have done. So there's one member, her mind was changed on that day. And so my job was done.
Wonderful job. Kris, did you want to add anything to this point?
Actually had a little bit of that same conversation. We had one of our officer training sessions on Saturday, and some people are talking that they didn't want to transition over. And I asked the question, I said, why are you in Toastmasters? You are here to learn. You are here to grow as an individual, grow professionally, grow personally. And this is the new education program. It is new. You have to take that time and work it. But then I followed it up. I said, for those of you who don't want to transition, are you still working in the traditional manuals? Well, no, we just kind of get together. We'll have 10-minute table talk answers, and we just kind of do what we want. Why are you a Toastmasters club then? I can call up, or email out 15 of my friends from my club and say, let's go out for dinner and have 2 hours of chatting and catching up. It doesn't have to be the extra expense of being a Toastmasters club. Why are you in Toastmasters? What are your goals? What do you want to get out of it? And then also, how can you help other people grow? Because that always ends up being the question too. Well, I've already done it. I don't need to learn it again. Well, then you need to share your experiences with others and help them learn and grow.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well said. Pushing it or passing it forward, sharing the knowledge and experience. And let's ask our newest member. This will be, I think, our final, you're the final panelist who hasn't been asked yet, Tricia. Would you like to speak on this topic as well with your 2 years of experience in Toastmasters? You need to unmute yourself though.
Okay, my computer was fighting with me. This time was the charm. Yeah, I have run into many different situations, and just to be upfront, completely honest, like I said, I had forewarning. Pathways was coming. I wasn't on board, and then I found out I was going to be area director. And I knew, as an area director, not only would I be in charge of training, but people would be coming to me and asking me about Pathways. So that is why I began Pathways. And once I began Pathways and I got through the first 2 levels and I got to level 3, that is where my honey spot was. I loved all the different options. And I had seen other Toastmasters go through and do all the options. So it's really endless. Your opportunities are endless. And even if once I get done with these 2 paths, there's 9 more paths. I can go through and get more electives. And each one's a little bit different. And you're going to learn and grow and be able to help other people. That's my passion. I love helping other people and seeing them get it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm seeing a question on the chat, and thanks, Carol. She's already answered it, but let me just say it out. Brandy was asking, do I have to redo the 4 items? Oops, it just went up. Where did it go? Do I have to redo the 4 items in level 1, which I completed before July 1, but didn't officially finish the path? And the answer is no. Pathways continues. July 1 is just a cutoff, for June 30 is a cutoff for submission of levels and all that. But in terms of the path, it continues. It goes on. And the cool thing is, June 2020, doesn't matter, Pathways goes on and on and on until the next change, which will probably be in the next 10, 20 years. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
There's a lovely comment from Elisa. I'm not sure if she's able to use her microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Are you there, Elisa?
It's so hard to find because we have so many people on the screen.
Yes.
Let me see.
I'll read it out for you.
Go ahead.
Elisa is saying we had a Pathways orientation, and for 7 new members and 5 showed up. We had a productive 2 hours sharing stories, coffee and Pathways. And at the end, all 5 were enrolled on Pathways and ready to go.
Wow, that's like 100% engagement. Good job. Good job. And yeah, I commend people who are working on their lunch break or sitting at their desk, but still trying to find out more about Pathways. And just tell your friends, by the way, that the recording will be shared. But of course, just like going to a concert, the recording is fine, but it's great to be right here live in the actual event, right? So. Yeah. At this point, yes, Ramon, and we'll make it brief because I would like to have
very
a wrap
brief.
up.
It's just a comment. I'm a life coach, and I had experience with a client that I think is relevant to what we're talking here. After I suggested some activities for the individual to improve on, and he came because he wanted to improve, he said no, he couldn't do that. And without going into details, the moral of his story is, in my language, improvement means change for the better. And when I suggested a change to the individual, he didn't want to change. So hold a second. You want to improve or you want to stagnate? So if everybody in Toastmasters, we come here because we want to improve. Therefore, we must be willing to change. Are we? Thank you.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And at this stage, we have about 6 minutes to the bottom of the hour. This is just perfect time to ask each of our panelists for a brief 45 to 55-second recap of their main point, or maybe an inspiring message or most important advice. Take it away, panelists. And who is unmuting first? Now I'm on the second screen, so let me see. There, Trish. The two Trishas are unmuted, and I didn't see who unmuted first. So friendly competition.
I'll defer to Trish.
Yes.
In the year and a half now that I've been on, chairing the committee and going out and trying to help members, we started off with lots of big tools, and cheat sheets and stuff. And what we found out was that keep the message really short and keep the message really simple has been the most effective thing. The other thing, new members aren't having the same struggles. They're just excited to be a Toastmaster and learn. It's really the challenges in the existing members who just can't find a way to get on board. For what I've been doing, showing them the similarities between Pathways and the traditional program is what seems to be breaking down the barriers. It's still speeches, it's still evaluations, it's still leadership projects. None of those things have changed. They're just packaged differently for you. And so the more that we can break down what they perceive as differences and show common things, they seem to be open. They open up faster than to considering getting on board.
Thank you. Keeping things simple, going back to the basics. Thank you, Trish. And the other Trish.
Yes, I just want to restate is if you do have members or yourself on the traditional path, sit down, map it out, and figure out, can I finish what my goal is in 12 months? Is it possible? And then even if the answer is yes, start your pathway as well, because everyone else in your club is going to be doing the pathways, and it's more fun to do it with your other members. You can have all your levels, and then those who might be a step or two ahead of you will show you the way.
Right, and have fun and compete in a friendly way. Thank you, Trish. And I think who's up next? We have all three of our other panelists muted. What a surprise. There you are, Carole and Kris at the same time.
Carole, you go first.
Thank you, Kris. My single message really is that you need to mentor people into the change. We do want them to change. We want to ease that process. So talk to them. Be beside them. Hey, even contact them outside of a club meeting, heaven forbid. Bring the mentoring into your meetings and make it part of the meeting, because that's an important conversation that needs to happen. We're not just talking about technology, we're talking about the goals for each member. So make sure that you ensure they can reach their goals by supporting them. Be a mentor.
Thank you very much. And Kris?
All right, and I agree with working one-on-one with the other members or in a group, but I'm still going to encourage the members to be proactive a little bit on their own too. Work those tutorials, ask the questions, but it ultimately does rely on the member. They are the ones who are making the decision of which path, which electives, which projects to do, what speeches or rules to sign up for in a meeting. They have to take some of the responsibility themselves, and we are there to help and guide them.
Thank you very much. And finally, Lori, what is your final advice or word of wisdom for our audience?
Wow, no pressure. I'm supposed to be profound now, right? My final word of advice is keep the faith. Sometimes we work so hard and we get a little discouraged. But make sure to celebrate every success that you have. And work with your members, encourage them. Get to know them a little bit, because what may be important to one person may not be as important to someone else. And if you keep at it and support them, you may be able to find what really works for them and what help that they need. And make sure to insist to involve your other officers and your other members, because it should be a club effort, not just for us individually. And as we work together in our clubs and in our areas and districts, together we can really make change happen and ensure that everyone's able to make the transition to Pathways.
Wow, that was profound. Thank you so much. And I wanted to end by thanking all our panelists who are so amazing. And I know if we had 2 hours, they would still have more wisdom and knowledge and experience to share. So right now on your screen, you should be seeing all their email addresses. I will also post this with their permission on the Facebook, on the Pathways discussion forum, so you can reach out to them. And also, I would like to mention or invite, she's right here, our profound final speaker. I would like to invite her to speak briefly about what she will be covering in our next Tuesday session, which will be coming up soon, next week. Lori?
Next week's session will be integrating pathways into your meetings. I have found that this is what caused our clubs to be the most successful in pathways. And I have 51 ideas. Don't worry, you don't have to write them all down, but you'll come away with ideas of things that you can do to help your members understand pathways, get excited about pathways, and encourage them to start and keep progressing in pathways. And that's next week at the same time, 7 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, same channel, same place.
Thank you so much. Let's give our panelists all a very big hand. Thank you. And everyone, unmute yourselves so you can applaud if you wish to. I will now stop the recording, but I will hang around for a while, and maybe our panelists will stay as well.